The ultimate basis of an all-around bureaucratic system is violence. As for the bureaucrats making the rules, he who is unfit to serve his fellow citizens wants to rule them. The searing Russian novel Life and Fate by Vasily Grossman is one of the greatest examinations of totalitarianism ever written. Based on his experiences under Stalin, Grossman depicts how humanity withers under tyranny. Grossman's book is not a dystopian novel, yet few books better teach how force is used to control a population by not only restricting liberty, but also exploiting weaknesses in human nature. Along a flank of the Stalingrad front, two colonels talk about the terrible impact of bureaucrats and bureaucracy. One colonel tells this story. There was an infantry detachment that had been surrounded. The men had nothing to eat. A squadron was ordered to drop them some food by parachute. And then the quartermaster refused to issue the food. He said he needed a signature on the delivery slip. And how could the men down below sign for what had been dropped by parachute? And he wouldn't budge. Finally, he received an order from above. The other colonel says, bureaucracy can be much more terrifying than that. He then shares this story. Remember the order, not one step back? There was one place where the Germans were mowing our men down by the 100. All we needed to do was withdraw over the brow of the hill. Strategically, it would have made no difference, and we'd have saved our men and equipment. But the orders were not one step back. And so the men perished, and their equipment was destroyed. The conversation continues, and then Grossman has one colonel deliver the punchline. What's really terrifying is when you realize that bureaucracy isn't simply a growth on the body of the state. If it were only that, it could be cut off. No, bureaucracy is the very essence of the state. The forces making bureaucracy arbitrary, capricious, and impervious to reason, the very essence of the state, are the same in America as they were in Grossman's Soviet Union. We all have our stories of bureaucratic indifference, and now during COVID, indifference has become cruel. Just ask the relatives of former Governor Cuomo's nursing home victims, or the former health angels who gained natural immunity and now face termination for refusing the vaccine mandate. In his book Bureaucracy, Ludwig von Mises explains, the ultimate basis of an all-around bureaucratic system is violence. As for the bureaucrats making the rules, Mises observes, he who is unfit to serve his fellow citizens wants to rule them. Today, has Grossman's World War II not one step back become if it saves one life? Egyptius is a pseudonymous critic of COVID policies. He recently explored how the not one step back mindset has shaped COVID policy. All containment policies since March 2020 flow from two fundamental premises that together form a pandemic doctrine. 1. All pandemic infections are regrettable and to be prevented. 2. It is possible to control pandemics via social or medical technology. Before 2020, nobody anywhere believed either of these things, not despite, but because of long experience with semi-regular pandemic influenza outbreaks. Egyptius explores the motives of the autonomous, undirected actions of a million nameless, faceless bureaucrats, which nobody can any longer control. Everything since then has been the autonomous force of the pandemic doctrine and its terrible demands. As containment policies have failed, one after the other, they have left a vortex of disconfirmed expectancy in their wake, turning early political and bureaucratic advocates of containment into truly deranged zealots. The policies themselves, though they are articles of faith, have little or no real-world effect, and this has had curious consequences. It became important for all countries to do as many useless things as possible, and more or less the same useless things as everyone else. Bureaucracies that rejected a specific measure risked being blamed for whatever happened next. And without controls, the failure of containment could be rewritten always and forever as success. Imagine how many more deaths we would have had if we never locked down. San Francisco bureaucrats demand that 5-year-old children be vaccinated in order to be admitted to indoor places. Will parents of tall 4-year-old children have to carry birth certificates to prove that their child isn't 5? School bureaucrats demand special needs children with breathing issues be placed in plexiglass cubicles. On a federal level, bureaucrats issue rules that contain a new cadre of inspectors empowered to level $13,600 per worker fines for those firms violating vaccine mandates that do nothing to control the spread of COVID. As essential services continue to deteriorate and shelves continue to empty, will bureaucrats change their guidelines? Egyptius predicts the COVID totalitarian toothpaste will never go back in the tube. Faced with this illiberal onslaught from politicians and bureaucrats, it seems there is little we can do but weep in despair. After all, you might reason, what can one person do? Mises is clear. Such a defeatist mindset forfeits your civic duties. Bureaucracy was written in 1944. And of course, Mises had nothing to say about the COVID bureaucracy. However, his advice on opposing the socialist bureaucracy is applicable today.